Hello.
I'm Sitakant Mishra, a faculty of International Relations in the School of Liberal Studies of Pandit Dindayal Petroleum University in Gujarat. Welcome to my discussion on the world order in international relations, the contours of various types of world order that the world has undergone, what has been India's position in those world orders, and in the second series, I'll be talking about the post COVID 19 world order and where does India put itself if such type of world order usurps sooner or later. In this video series, I'm analyzing the nature of the current world order and if the world will see ushering of a new world order post pandemic. Right now, of course, the geopolitical implications of COVID 19 are undoubtedly secondary compared to the health situation and health and safety issues of the world. Of course, the world will overcome this pandemic sooner or later, but the offshoot of the pandemic would be consequential for the global order, which at first had started to reshape and will transform fully to its new avatar at once. What would be the exact contours of the post COVID 19 world order is too early to presume and conclude. But given unfolding power politics, especially between USA, China, and the other actors like Russia, Australia, Iran, some of the European countries, and of course, if you include India, the shape of global power hierarchy would not hang on for long. Before I dwell upon the post-pandemic phase in the subsequent video, let me first generically explain what do we mean by world order. Etymologically, world order or international order is synonymously used with international system, international society, international community, though they all are fundamentally different from each other. According to the book Understanding the Current International Order by Rand publication in 2016, the international order refers to a stable, structured pattern of relationships among states that involves some combination of parts, including norms, rulemaking, institutions, and international political organizations or regimes, among others. An order is distinguished from chaos or random relationships by some degree of pattern and structure. Order presumes some degree of institutionalization or established structure, established through ordering mechanisms that play some role in governing the relationship and behaviors among actors in a system. It presumes the existence of a structured pattern of relations. For example, we have seen the Concert of Europe, the League of Nations, the post-World War II Cold War bipolar order, the post-Cold War unipolar order led by America. We will see if presumed the way it is presumed by others, if it takes place, what shape the post-pandemic world order would take. Essentially, international order refers to patterns of relations that have become established and institutionalized. In a more generic way, it is the distribution of power among world actors. Also, one needs to keep in mind that the foundations of international order is built on the bedrock of principles of the Westphalian system established in Treaty of Westphalia in 1648 that established actually the territorial integrity norm in international arena. The nation states since then became the primary actors governed by a daunting array of institutions or the global governance mechanism that includes supranational institutions which generate a massive range of rules, standards and procedures. Those who do not conform to these procedure, standard and norms, they are often considered as rogue states. Now let me take you through the history and forms of world order the world has experienced in the modern times. If I take you back to the period of 1815 to 1914, which is known as the golden age of balance of power, where it is a system of just equilibrium in power among nations, while preventing anyone from becoming sufficiently strong to enforce its will upon others. During this period, Great Britain was playing the role of a balancer. Rather, it was the superpower of that time. After the World War II, a new world order emerged, which is known as the Cold War world order. This world order was characterized by bipolarity, represented by two opposing ideologies propagated by two superpowers. The liberal capitalist order was propagated by America, and the communist socio-political structure was propagated by the Soviet Union. Besides, both superpowers having their military groupings or blocs armed with nuclear weapons competed with each other to every corner of the world into their fold. During this time until now, the global governance structure was based on the Bretton Woods system comprising of the WTO, World Bank, and the United Nations, though all of these structures were the casualties of the superpower rivalry subsequently. Meanwhile, the newly independent Afro-Asian countries known as the Third World were apprehensive about the superpowers and tried to stay away from the superpower influence by organizing themselves under the non-alignment movement, or known as NAM. During this world order, the world has experienced relative peace during the last 7 decades at least, as there is absence of any large-scale war, though threat of complete annihilation was all around. Many attribute this absence of war over the last 7 decades, or the relative peace in the world prevailing, to the success of the United Nations. But many others attribute it to the existence of nuclear weapons that did not allow any superpower to resort to war, as it may lead to mutually assured destruction, or known as the MAD. Whatever it may be, this world order ended in 1990 when Soviet Union disintegrated, leaving United States as the sole superpower. Known as the post-Cold War world order, the world became unipolar, with America as the victorious power, representing the liberal capitalist ideology. Henry Kissinger, in his book World Order, says that the post-Cold War world order is the American world order, characterized by promotion of democracy and market economy as the only model for global peace. He says today's world order is American world order. It is not like the traditional European approach that viewed peoples and states as inherently competitive, that we have discussed before, the balance of power system. The prevalent American world order considered people inherently reasonable and inclined towards peaceful compromise, common sense, and fair dealings. American military power provided a security shield during this time for the rest of the world, whether its beneficiaries asked for it or not. America nurtured all over the world the liberal economy, and the world is made more ordered by America, as Henry Kissinger says in his book World Order. Subsequently, many other authors have come out with their framework of the current world order. Francis Fukuyama, in his book The End of History and the Last Man, has gone to the extent of saying that what we may be witnessing is not just the end of the Cold War or the passing of the particular period of history, but the end of history as such. That is the end point of mankind's ideological evolution and the universalization of the Western liberal democracy as the final form of human government. Many others have characterized the post-Cold War world order as multipolar or non-polar. For example, Samuel Huntington, in his book The Clash of Civilization, says, in the post-Cold War world, for the first time in history, global politics has become multipolar and multi-civilizational. In the post-Cold War period, the most important distinction among peoples are not ideological, not political or economic, they are rather cultural. The central and the most dangerous dimension of emerging global politics would be conflict between groups from differing civilizations. Clash of civilizations are the greatest threat to world peace. The central and the most dangerous dimension of the emerging global politics would be conflict between groups from differing civilizations. Clash of civilizations are the greatest threat to the world peace. Huntington's assertions proved to be correct. As we have seen, conflict have erupted in post-Cold War period along the cultural and religious fault lines in different parts of the world. Nevertheless, America remained the sole superpower of the world, and the Cold War and the post-Cold War world order till 2001 remained America-centric undoubtedly. The United States has created an international order that buttresses its primacy materially, institutionally, and ideationally, thereby allowing it to advance diverse interests while economizing on its use of force. Two events occurred subsequently that gave rise to a split in the progress of the world order led by America for quite some time. First, the terrorist attack on USA or the 9/11, and subsequently the Chinese rise as a superpower marks a shift in the post-Cold War world order. The 9/11 is a major event in the history of world politics. Before 9/11, a sole superpower was the colossus on the global horizon. The superpower's pedestal has cracked, and the tremors have shaken the world. Symbolically, 9/11 attacks were on democracy, capitalism, and America's military might. In fact, it is an attack on America's supremacy as the sole superpower, because a non-state actor attacked the sole superpower of the world in its homeland. In fact, it is an attack on the American supremacy, therefore, as the sole superpower. The global war on terror that was raised by America further divided the world into two. Number one, terrorists and their sympathizers in one side, and states who are against terrorism and join hands with America to fight against them. As the American President George W. Bush told, over time, it is going to be important for nations to know they will be held accountable for inactivity. You are either with us or against us in the fight against terror. The world has undergone since then enormous changes. 5 features in the post 9/11 world order stands out. Number one, United States has become much more unilateral in its approach to ensuring its national security. Second, often regimes which are hostile to America are changed by force. Number 3, securitization of foreign policy in the US and Europe, particularly in relation to the Middle East and Muslim world. Number 4, responsibility to protect, or is called right to protect, or R2P, has perished. Rather, it is used as a disguise for self-interest and self-security. And lastly, which is more important, the role of illegitimate non-state actors is much more visible than before. They are now active actors in international politics whatsoever. Moreover, the debate over the structure of the post 9/11 world order is inconclusive. There was no consensus regarding whether the post-Cold War world order is unipolar, multipolar, non-polar, etc., etc. But the new debate that has surfaced involving America ever since 9/11 is that the sole superpower is relatively declining. It is no more enthusiastic to shoulder the responsibility of its traditional allies. It is strategically retreating from many areas and agreements. Many have viewed this situation as post-Western world order. Like Oliver Stwenkel in his book Post-Western World talks at length on this aspect, so also Farid Zakaria talks in the similar length in his argument Post-American World Order, where the era of Western-dominated world order is getting over. Others view it as a polycentric world order in which there are multiple power centers and all compete and cooperate with each other at the same time. Meanwhile, the European Union has emerged as a formidable player in international politics, and China has risen to compete with United States. These are the two different developments that have occurred over the last few decades. Undoubtedly, China is the largest beneficiary of the American-led liberal capitalist order. It has spanned across the world for trade and strategic presence and utilized America's security umbrella in different parts of the world. China's rise has been noticed and Sino-US rivalry is clearly visible during the last few decades. Given China's interest and maneuver in Asia Pacific and Indian Ocean, America had to reorient its Pacific strategy into Indo-Pacific strategy. A Sino-US rivalry has been speculated since long, and Graham Allison has gone into the extent of viewing it in the framework of Thucydides' trap, where a war between China and USA is inevitable. It is to speculate if a power transition between China and USA is likely in the foreseeable future. Will a revisionist China be able to replace a status quoist America? If this really happens, what would be the consequences? When a rising power rivals a ruling power, Graham Allison has studied these aspects in his book Destined for War, where he found that in 12 of 16 cases over the past 500 years, the result was war. The defining question about global order for this generation is whether China and United States can escape such a war, which is termed as the Thucydides trap. In a recent publication by Shashi Tharoor and Samir Saran argue that the current world order rather should be termed as disorder. The book title, The New World Disorder and the Indian Imperative, the author says, owing to the series of events like US withdrawal from the climate change and the Trans-Pacific Partnership, China's BRI, vote for Brexit and others make the basis for a new world disorder. And India must respond and shape a counter to such a situation. During these contesting and fluid world order, where does India position itself? Ever since its independence, India has adopted the principle of non-alignment, which has allowed it to maneuver in critical times. Its long years of colonial experience and superpower rivalry did not permit it to take sides in the divided world. India rather maintained a middle position and foreign policy autonomy while actively participating in the global affairs. Undoubtedly, India has leaned towards Soviet Union at certain point, and with the disintegration of USSR, it found itself in the losing side of the Cold War divide. But quickly, India has reoriented its foreign policy and came closer to United States, the sole superpower. Ever since the end of the Cold War, India has been an integral part of the American-led world order and aspires to acquire a position in the high table. Meanwhile, China is building an alternative or parallel world order where India has been welcomed. But the larger question today is, if a Sino-American conflict is inevitable, where will India position itself? Since India has already been leaned towards America over the last few decades, if a China-America war unfolds and America loses, probably India will find itself again in the losing side. To my mind, I think in the American world order, which India is now fully integrated, America is still confused where to position India in its scheme. India is aspiring to become a member of the Security Council of the United Nations, many other regimes, but America is not yet able to offer these positions to India, whereas China is while building its scheme of world order or a parallel world order, invited India, cooperated India or co-opted India in its scheme like SCO, Asian Infrastructure Development Bank, and many other initiatives. China look forward to India's participation. Now it is for India to judge which side or which position India should take in an unfolding world order, which is much more threatening or chaotic given the Sino-American rivalry in the current situation. Given the foundations of the American-led world order in stress, and the current COVID-19 pandemic threatening them in a deadly way, it is speculated that a new world order would usher post-pandemic, as America now not in a position to provide the required crisis time leadership to the world. The socioeconomic loss and unfolding Sino-American spat over the origin of the pandemic has definite consequences which may lead to a larger conflict and emergence of a new world order. What would be the contours of the post-pandemic world order and where will India posit itself in the unfolding scenario is discussed in the subsequent video. Thanks for watching.